Hello everyone, welcome to another Gran Turismo 7 Science Corner. The first one in a wee while, it has to be said. It's been a wee while since we've really tested something within this game. And I thought with all the hoo-ha surrounding iRacing's new wet weather system called Tempest and all the praise and gratitude it's been receiving for being realistic in terms of introducing wet weather driving techniques, for example braking offline and using the outside of the corner, or just not using the racing line to find additional grip. It kind of struck me, this is something I have never really tested in Gran Turismo 7. I was always of the opinion that you just drove on the racing line in Gran Turismo 7. It didn't really simulate wet weather driving techniques, and I'm going to be honest with you, the results of these tests have somewhat blown me away. I think you're going to be very interested in my findings here. So stick around. It's not the most interesting of subjects, and there's quite a lot of repetition of tests, but I do think it's worthwhile watching the video to the end, because as I said, I think you're going to be kind of very surprised at the results that we uncover here. So if you're not aware what the difference is between the racing line and the wet line, in the very simplest terms that I can put it, on a racetrack, cars will follow the racing line lap after lap after lap. They'll leave rubber down on the track. This becomes the grippiest part of the track in the dry, rubber on rubber being very grippy. When the rain comes down, that racing line can become very slippy because the rain kind of sits on the surface of the rubber. So what drivers will try and do in wet weather racing is they'll kind of try and use different parts of the track to try and find some grip. So off the racing line, maybe the braking zones into big braking zones like we're going towards here at Fuji. Turn 1, there might be a little bit more grip on the inside. But what we're testing here, this is the test that kind of piqued my interest, was basically braking in a straight line and the difference between braking on the racing line on a wet track and braking off the racing line. So in the Ferrari 458 into Fuji turn 1, we broke just after the 200 metre board. There's a little kind of slip road there, which was our braking marker. And you can see we've brought the car to a stop all the way down at the marshal's post, actually beyond the end of the stand. That was braking on the racing line, and you could feel the car slipping. You may well have seen it as well from the onboard footage. The back end of the car was trying to squirm out. So we're going to do exactly the same test here, only this time we are going to brake off the racing line and see if there's going to be any more grip there. If there is more grip, then the car should stop a little bit earlier. So I do have the weather radar on screen there. You can see that this test has been conducted in exactly the same conditions as the previous one. I just went into time trial mode on Fuji, so it's not like a BOP'd Ferrari this, it's probably got a little bit more power, but it's exactly the same car, on exactly the same track, in exactly the same conditions. So come down to the braking zone here, off the racing line. You can see the car squirming there, even off the racing line as well, but you can see visually we have got that car stopped a lot earlier than we got the car stopped while on the racing line. But a good couple of car lengths there maybe. We're all the way down at that marshal's post there, all the way down beyond the end of the stand on what's now the left hand side. So let's just do that test again. Let's just confirm the results. This time we'll do it in third person view just to give you an idea of where we're braking. So coming down in towards turn 1 at Fuji, just after the 200 metre board, this little slip road here was our braking marker. So braking on the racing line, you can see the car moving about, sliding about. Now we do get the car stopped a little bit quicker than we did on our first test on the racing line. Front of the car sort of level with the end of the stand there, I think would be fair to say. So maybe we broke a little bit earlier there, or maybe the brakes worked a little bit better. Obviously, you know, there is going to be slight differences in where I brake. I can't, you know, you do your best to brake at exactly the same point, but it doesn't always quite work out. But let's do that test again off the racing line. So you see the car also squirming about there, and we're getting the car to a halt. Now there's definitely not as big a difference between this result as there was between the first test, but we've definitely got that car stopped earlier than when we broke on the racing line by braking off the racing line, maybe by a couple of car lengths again, and it's certainly a car and a half. So that was the kind of test I did, not this one in particular. I did it at a topless, but it piqued my interest, made me think, is there actually something here where there is actually wet weather driving techniques in Gran Turismo 7? So the next test we're going to do, we're still at Fuji here, and we are going to basically do the first sector. I'm going to give myself 5 attempts at using the racing line. So as you can see there, we actually nearly went off the track, so we were right over at the the left hand side of the track. But yeah, basically sector 1 ends here, the time comes up at 25.511. So I'm just going to repeat that test 5 times and see what the best time we can do. So I will show you 4 of the 5 attempts because one of them went completely wrong, we went flying off the track. But I'll show you 4 of the 5 attempts using the racing line, and we'll see what the best time we managed to set is. So went a lot quicker on that one, down to a 25.205. Now I will have to show you me braking on the racing line for each attempt, apologies, rather than just showing you the end of the sector. I just want to have the authenticity there that you can see I am actually braking on the racing line when we set these sector times. So attempt number 3 here, we go a little bit slower for 25.371, and last attempt that we're showing, as I said, I did do another attempt that went very wrong indeed, so there was no point showing you that one. So on the racing line, try to get the power down, learning maybe a little bit more each time because that's what you kind of tend to do in the wet weather, but not going any quicker on that one either. So our fastest attempt while using the racing line was a 25.205. Let's move to trying the same test. This time we're going to use what we'll call the wet line, or sometimes it's called the karting line, but basically we're going to break off the racing line and try and use what we think is more grip there given the first test that we tried. So off the racing line, breaking down into turn 1, middle of the track, struggling to get the car slowed down there. It's not feeling very good this first test here, I'm not going to lie. Try to get the power down, head towards the end of sector 1. What's the time going to be? 25.643, the slowest result that we have had so far. That wasn't looking too good. So here's attempt number 2 using the wet line. Now this one felt really bad, to be honest with you. We didn't get anywhere near the apex, but maybe that worked out in our favour. Maybe there's just more grip slightly off the apex there. And then I'm trying to sort of stay off what I would say the perceivable racing line to try and get some traction out the corner as well. And we immediately go quicker. Fastest time we've done so far at 25.112. So I'm now learning how late can I actually brake off the line. I can definitely brake later into turn 1 off the racing line compared to when I was on the racing line. Again, just trying to avoid what would be the perceivable racing line and trying to get some traction down as well to a 25.049. And this final attempt here, using the braking offline, we're really going to push the braking as late as we possibly can, as late as what I believe I can get the car stopped into turn 1. Slightly off the apex there as well. We are on the racing line as we try to get the traction down here, then maybe cutting across and looking for some traction over here on the track. And this is going to be our fastest attempt as we do a 25.012. Now this attempt here that I was going to do was actually going to be attempt number 5 by braking offline, but I was now pretty convinced there was something there. You know, 3 out of our 4 attempts would have been much quicker than our best attempt braking on the racing line. So I thought, you know what, let's try and brake on the racing line where I broke on our fastest time braking, not on the racing line. And well, here was the result of that. We go flying off the track. There just wasn't the same grip there. There was not the same stopping power on the racing line, braking at the same point as our fastest attempt when we broke off the racing line. And that 100% confirmed to me that there's more grip on the inside of the track, of the racing line, when the track is wet. Certainly into Fuji turn 1. So we did a 25.205 as our fastest time on the racing line, a 25.012, so 2 attempts quicker not using the racing line on one corner. So second test here, or third test to be sorry, is just a very quick one. I just wanted to try doing a grid start from the racing line and a grid start off the racing line. So basically using there's a white line across the track down here. Just going to drive right through it, and then we'll do the same from off the racing line. So the white line is where the kind of white line for the pit exit ends, and that's what I'm going to use as my reference point to see, you know, basically, can we get more grip? Can we get a better start off the racing line? Well, here's the results of that. We've got the racing line on the left and off the racing line on the right, and we were just under a tenth quicker down to the same point. Now, that's certainly not conclusive. I only did the test once, but you'd probably have to do it repeatedly times or kind of take an average to get a very definite result. But it was kind of, again, just a little bit more evidence confirming that there seems to be more grip off the racing line in wet conditions. Fourth and final test, let's head into the license centre. We're going to use IB6. So this is in the old school BMW. Apologies, I can't remember the name of the car. And it's about, you know, it's a wet weather driving license test at the Red Bull Ring. Kind of go through a few corners here. So this first attempt here, we are using the racing line. Now, I had done about 20 minutes of messing about on this before the footage that we're looking at here. So I was well up to speed on this test here. So this kind of first attempt we're going to do here is on the racing line, and we're going to set a fairly decent time, not having too many problems. We set a 38.897, so that's like 9 tenths within gold time. So not too shabby a time at all. Easy gold just using the racing line. But let's now use the techniques that we've kind of learned from the previous test, braking offline, trying to find some grip on the outside of the track. So, you know, basically avoiding the racing line as much as we possibly can. So braking off the line in there to turn 1, going a little bit wide of the apex, come back across the racing line, try to get the traction down here on what looks like a sort of slightly drier part of the track. Look how much later we can brake into this bit here. We go across the racing line, there's no grip then. As soon as we're off the racing line, I could feel the car grip up. We're getting a little bit more traction out of the corner here. We're going to come off the racing line, look for the traction on the inside of the track, whereas the racing line car is there, and we immediately go 5 tenths quicker, just using those wet weather techniques. Next attempt, we did a 38.393. Our best attempt so far was a 38.248 that I had done in the previous 20 minutes that I talked about. But this attempt here, I was trying to go, you know, I thought I'd do a few more attempts because these kind of techniques are definitely working. Can we actually beat our 38.248? So again, braking off the racing line here, just looking for the traction off the racing line here. Come down into the left-hander, braking off the racing line, going across the racing line, looking for the grip on the outside. You can actually see that the racing line looks a little bit shiny on this one here. You can almost kind of, you know, so shiny usually means slippy, doesn't it? But we get a half decent exit and we cross the line for a 38.218, 1.6 seconds faster than the goal time, albeit we are still a second off the fastest time in the world. But that actually puts me over 2 tenths clear of my friends' leaderboard or friends' ranking on that test. So I don't know what you think. Every test I did here just confirmed to me. I was kind of blown away by the results, folks. I am not going to lie. I was blown away by the results because I did not think wet weather driving techniques was a thing in Gran Turismo 7. To my shame, I had never tested it myself. I basically just listened to what other people told me. I've always said you should always go and test things yourself. Don't just trust what somebody tells you on the internet, which is exactly what I'm asking you to do here. But I'll tell you what, go and do this license test at the Red Bull Ring and let me know if what I've kind of sort of demonstrated here helps you to improve your time. I'd love to hear it in the comments. But yeah, people kept saying this game was a simcade, it's not a real simulator, you know, why would it have things like wet lines in it? But I am totally 100% converted. Every single test I did here confirmed to me that by using wet weather techniques I would be rewarded with faster lap times, faster sectors, more grip. And yeah, I can't wait till we actually get some proper wet weather racing. PD, if you're listening, come on, let's get it in there to try and use these techniques in a real live environment. But yeah, let me know what you think in the comments. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video. I appreciate you watching. Thank you, and I'll catch you in the next one. Goodbye now.